Ladies and gentlemen, we need to talk about something that most people completely miss, and I mean completely miss. Because Christine Lagarde just said a couple of things that, in my opinion, I believe that could be setting up one of the clearest signs for the financial system's future, and XRP could have that hidden role that no one's talking about. This is not about moon targets. This is not about blind speculation. This is not about emotional hopium. This is about real-world infrastructure. This is about language. This is about incentives. This is about how institutions quietly tell you they're doing something before they're doing something, long before the public even understands it. So in this video, we're going to break down what Christine Lagarde said, why the average investor may have ignored it, and why this could actually correlate to XRP. How it could connect to Ripple, interoperability, and the next financial movement. And trust me, by the end of this video, you will never hear a central banker speak the same way again. Let's begin with the simple truth. Most people hear officials speak and they think they're just saying nothing. They hear complicated words, they hear policy jargon, they hear boring financial language, and they just tune it out. They go about their day. But smart money, the people that do research, they understand it in a different way. Because when powerful people speak trillion-dollar infrastructure, when they speak on trillion-dollar problems, they're not talking about just some boring memes. These powerful people speak encoded priorities. They speak about efficiency. They speak about risk. They speak about harmonization. They speak about resilience. And every one of those words means that money is moving somewhere. When Christine Lagarde speaks on fragmentation, when she speaks on cross-border friction, uneven regulation, settlement delays, and the need for connected systems, that is not a random conversation from a central banker. That is a blueprint discussion. That is engineers in suits talking about the rails. They're talking about the broken rails. And whenever someone gets the opportunity to discuss about broken rails, there's going to be someone benefiting from the replacement. Now let's talk about and think about the old financial world. If you wanted to send value internationally, you'd probably have to connect to multiple corresponding banks, currency conversations, delays, fees, compliance checks, settlement windows, and reconciliation layers. It can feel like sending an email through 10 post offices. Imagine if every single email needed approval from 5 different countries before it got to its arrival place. In the communications world, that just sounds ridiculous. Yet in the financial world, that has been the norm for decades now. And that's why the next phase of finance is not about hype coins. It's about infrastructure assets. It's about the assets that remove friction. It's all about the networks that connect isolated pools of liquidity. Now, let me be very clear. Christine Lagarde did not say the words XRP in her quote that everyone is talking about, but she didn't even need to. Sometimes the most important signals are indirect. If the head of a major central bank says something along the lines of the future requires interoperable systems, level playing fields, and efficient cross-border movement, then ask yourself a simple question. What assets and what networks were specifically designed for that issue? Not meme culture, not copycat chains, not systems built for JPEG collections, systems built for settlement, systems built for transfer, systems built for liquidity movement at the scale of trillions of dollars. Well, in that case, that narrows the playing field very quickly, and XRP might be the best solution for that. And that's why smart money is paying attention to Ripple and paying attention to XRP during these conversations. Because XRP's core narrative has been very simple, very direct for years now. A neutral bridge for value movement between different currencies and different systems. Now, no matter how this adoption happens, we have to be honest and balanced. The problem statement keeps on sounding more and more familiar. Think about the Roman roads. Rome did not dominate just because of their soldiers. Rome dominated because Rome moved troops. The roads moved trade, information, and taxation faster than fragmented rivals. Roads at that time were power. Now translate that into today's day and age, which is now the digital age. Payment rails are roads. Liquidity is roads. Settlement networks are roads. And the country, the institution, or system that helps power those roads are very important and very crucial. That's exactly why tokenization matters. That is why stablecoins matter. Because if every nation built their own digital money island, then congratulations, we move money faster. You created faster islands, but these islands still need bridges to be able to connect to each other. That's exactly what XRP is. And that might be one of the most misunderstood concepts in all of crypto. Everyone gets excited about, just creating a digital currency. You ask about how these digital currencies can actually communicate and talk with each other. You ask about how the liquidity will move in between them. You ask about when these systems and when these digital currencies use different rules, different systems. Let's talk about stablecoins for a moment. Stablecoins have clearly proven product market fit. People use them, institutions use them, traders use them, cross-border markets use them. I mean, stablecoins are here, they're here to stay. But stablecoins alone do not automatically solve everything. If multiple different stablecoins exist under, multiple different jurisdictions with different reserves, different, regulations, with different risk profiles, different redemption structures, and that's where complexity returns. It gets all complicated yet again. You reduce one layer of friction and create another. So what do policymakers discuss? They discuss standards, redemption fairness, systematic risk. Again, the same exact recurring theme. How do separate systems function together smoothly? The question is bigger than one token. The question is bigger than one company. That right there is the trillion-dollar question that everyone's trying to find the answer to. And if a digital asset like, I don't know, XRP finds that answer to that question, then we start to see the market react. Because retail investors, they often obsess over one thing, and that is just the current price. Meanwhile, the institutions, the ones that are dealing with the billions and even trillions of dollars, they're focused on decade-long architecture. Retail asks, oh, what happened today? What happened this week? What happened the past month? Retail is asking the question, what powers settlement in the year 2030? What powers settlement in the year 2040, 2050? Retail asks, oh, why did XRP not pump today? Meanwhile, institutions are wondering how to reduce basis points during global transfer flows. Retail investors and institutional investors are living in two completely different worlds. And if you judge an infrastructure play only by short-term price action and emotion, then you're playing the wrong game here. You're completely misunderstanding the whole entire point. Now let's discuss Ripple. Ripple has spent years focusing on enterprise relationships, payment providers, regulatory clarity, institutional integrations, and real-world settlement use cases. That strategy often looked boring to retail traders who, number one, weren't patient, and number two, weren't looking at the same thing that Ripple's really paying attention to, and that's the long-term picture. Retail wants, instant fireworks, but boring and quiet and silent is often what these institutions truly want. Banks do not adopt chaos. Banks are not going to go ahead and adopt Dogecoin. Treasuries do not adopt memes. Treasuries are not going to adopt Shiba Inu. And compliance departments do not adopt emotional narratives. They adopt systems that reduce costs, that improve speed, increases visibility, and to fit regulatory framework. Again, infrastructure that does not guarantee success. Nothing is guaranteed, but it explains why Ripple has constantly operated in this lane that many crypto investors have completely ignored. Now let's imagine a future world. Europe has digital euro system. Asia has multiple CBDCs. The United States uses tokenized bank deposits and private stablecoins. Asset managers use tokenized bonds. Real estate and homes become fractionalized on-chain. Trade invoices settled digitally. That sounds futuristic, right? I mean, parts of it are already happening in real time. Now let's ask the next obvious question. How do these systems connect with each other? How do they settle quickly? How do they source liquidity? How do they comply across borders? That is where the hidden role conversation begins. Not hype, but infrastructure. And function eventually attracts capital. That is why I keep saying the market has to be underestimating all of this utility. The utility narratives that take longer to mature. Speculation moves fast, but infrastructure moves slow. But when that infrastructure that moves slow actually starts to appreciate, that matters big. Look at fiber optic cables. Look at cloud computing. Look at shipping lanes. Look at semiconductors. Crypto investors often want one thesis to happen in under a year. That's impossible. If they buy something and it doesn't hit their price target right away, they get all emotional and they think it's a scam. That's not how real-world structural change works, especially inside the banking system. Structural change often feels boring, and then it feels like the most important thing in the world. Now, does this mean that XRP randomly, instantly goes to crazy numbers by tomorrow? No, it doesn't. Let's stay rational. These prices depend on this kind of adoption. XRP as a digital commodity, it's priced in based on its adoption, utility, inflow, and liquidity. And remember this, markets often misprice what they don't understand yet. There was a time that Amazon was misunderstood and underpriced because it was just an online bookstore, right? There was a time that internet was underestimated because it was, oh, just email. There was a time that smartphones were underestimated because, oh, it's just a phone with a screen. You can't do much. People compress future potential with current labels. And XRP in 2026 is currently labeled as, oh, an old coin, a bank coin, a nothing burger. But labels do not determine outcomes. Use case does. Adoption does. Volume does. Liquidity demand does. So when Christine Lagarde discussed the demand for connected systems, I hear something that many people missed. I hear confirmation that the problem still exists. If the problem still exists, then the market should be looking at what best fits that solution. solution. All eyes point to Ripple and XRP. So no, Christine Lagarde did not shout out in front of all the central bankers, buy XRP. No, that's not how it works. But what she did is far more important. She highlighted the exact type of problem that Ripple and XRP could provide a solution for. So look, it's not instant, it's not simple, and it's not guaranteed, but I'll tell you this, it's increasingly plausible. And sometimes in markets, something plausible is where reprices begin. And guys, the biggest wealth transfers often happen quietly before anyone is looking. So if you guys liked this breakdown, share it with another XRP holder that needs to hear it. And guys, like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.